I was speaking about.
Let me restate what you said. Let me restate what you said then.
Let's go.
You said that males are privileged over females.
Inherently and through history. Yes, inherently through history.
Okay, how?
When they had the right to vote before we did. They had the right to own land before we did. They had the right to work before we did. Anything else? The fact that we had to earn a right to vote should say enough about how men are more inherently privileged.
Oh, you didn't
the
earn
fact
it.
that we've never.
No.
Okay, sorry. The fact that we didn't have it to begin with. The fact
you got
that
the right
we've
to
only
vote?
had we've had what 49 presidents. What president are we on now? And they've all been male.
I
Oh,
was
sorry.
gonna bring that up
Apex
white
fallacy.
male besides one.
Apex fallacy.
So it's things like that that show us the fact that these things even exist for a reason, which I get what you're saying when it's teaching you, oh, when I come in, I'm teaching, it's showing me that I'm so less privileged. First of all, that's a flaw on yourself because I've never seen those things and thought that way. I think if anything, it just brings attention to people who might not realize how much privilege they have just from the person they were born as. Some people don't realize that, and it does great justice for them to be able to recognize their privilege and use it for good. So it's not supposed to show people, oh, if you're black or a woman or gay, then you're just less privileged and you're screwed.
I don't know if we can reference history as an example for this.
Why not?
But what about today?
Why can we not reference history? Because even still
Here,
now...
I'll even engage. Wait, let me come in. I will even fucking engage with you guys historically. I'm prepared to say that actually, even historically, men had it worse than women.
Agreed.
And if you want to look at the apex, you want to look at the 1% of men who had power, fine. We can. You want to look at the less than 1% of men who had power, cool. That's not about men and women. That's about who had power. If we're looking at the vast majority of men, the vast majority of women, I'm prepared to sit here and say, historically, I don't care how fucking far back you want to go. Men have always fucking had it worse. How about that?
Absolutely.
So get the
no.
Because for a long time in history, women weren't even allowed to be talked unless they were talked to. They had to stay in the house. All these rules, women had to stay in their place, right? Men decided that.
It's like that joke, and now women want to.
You can phrase it as poorly as you want to.
Well, yeah.
But
no, absolutely.
Hold on, let Mason speak. Go ahead.
Historically, okay, hold up. No, if we're talking historically, women didn't actually want the right to vote. You talk about it now, well, because they understood the privileged position they were in. A man provided for them to live, provided a place for them to raise a family. All they had to do was take care of the home, raise children, and they found that an extremely
true.
Well, that's just for most of history.
I feel like if that were true, women would not have ganged together to fight for rights like that.
Oh, that's not true though. Privileged, extremely wealthy white men pushed for women to have the right to vote.
And when so they would be in that if men don't want it, we can't have it. Thank you. What?
No, because women didn't want it. It's only this recent phenomenon.
But the reason why it was able for us to get it is because white men wanted us to have it, so we got it. So what does that say? White men dictate.
Because they're taking, because they can take advantage of this.
There was a different motive than just wanting women to vote behind them pushing women to vote.
Because then all of a sudden, if they start,
I'm just saying it only happened because a white man wanted it to.
Yeah.
Which
I'm prepared to make historical arguments. We can go back. Let's go back to the 1910s when women didn't have the right to vote. Let's laser in.
And we were segregated and a bunch of other stuff.
Let's go back to the 1910s. So women got the right to vote in 1918, I believe, or was it ratified in 1920? My years might be slightly off there. So, would you prefer to be an 18-year-old man or an 18-year-old woman in 1914?
18-year-old man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting because you know what else happened in can somebody fix that?
That's the second time.
You know what else?
Take it off.
God. Did the popcorn spill again? Okay.
Whatever.
You know what else happened in 1914?
What?
World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would love to fight for my country if I was a man. I'm literally a criminology and criminal justice major who's going to fight for my counties and serve them. So I think, yes, as a man, I would want to serve my country.
It's not a privilege to fight in war.
It's not.
yeah, I understand you're not saying it's a privilege to fight in war,
Yeah.
but it's also something that us in our society, we have no grasp over. I don't have a grasp over it. I've never fought in war. I've never seen it. I mean, the closest thing I can say, I've seen a dead body, and it's not exactly the same thing you would assume it would be. It's a very different experience. But people who have come back from war, they know it's an extremely unprivileged position to have to fight, to have to go do that, and then especially in their case in 1914, being forced to do so. I would find it extremely difficult to say that in 1914 I would be more privileged to be a man than a woman. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't go do it, and I wouldn't go do it gladly to protect my country. 100%, I would do that, but it wouldn't be a privileged position.
What happened to free will?
What do you mean free will?
All this privilege talk and everything. We live in America, the land of opportunity. Like, what happened
It's really
to free
hard to have
free
a
will?
good opportunity when, say, you're born from a crackhead.
I mean,
ethnicity,
you
like,
work
in any
hard.
race.
You work hard.
You work hard, but you were definitely placed. You have to work harder than someone who was born with a silver spoon.
Here,
If you
why
come
don't we-
from somewhere
I mean,
we
it's
open
more
this up?
motivation.
Oh, it's more motivation.
Yeah,
Well,
because
crap,
there's a
you
lot
don't have
of
someone
there's a
to
lot
help
of children
you.
that come from affluent families that have no moral guide or purpose in this world because they've been given everything to them on a
but
silver
you can't,
platter.
You can't, that's fine, but you can't say that someone who isn't born from an affluent family, who family is able to help them, maybe pay for their college, maybe get them their first car, versus someone who's born in, say, foster care.
Holy
or doesn't
fuck,
know where their next
irrelevant.
meal is.
I mean,
Stick to the fucking topic. We're going to talk about male privilege
one
and
more thing
female
before we talk
privilege.
about that.
So here, bro, because you guys keep derailing the fucking conversation. We're literally, like, it's totally derailed
But you can talk
every
about the
single
Bible
time.
for 20 minutes, but we can't talk about something that has, not that I don't love it.
It was
I love
relevant.
It, I do.
It pertained to the topic.
It
I
was
feel like
relevant.
it's not pertain to
Umbrella
So,
under
look,
the same
Brian was trying to hone in on male versus female privilege, and then we started
Now
talking
you're
about affluent
like,
crackheads.
Yeah, it's totally derailed.
Because it gets boring
it's
after
okay,
a little
hold
bit.
on,
We
let
don't
me-
want to talk about
right?
this.
And we're using hypotheticals and statistics to
Let me
back up each other's things.
Like, you're the only one tweaking out.
let me open it up to the whole panel. So, who's more privileged, men or women?
Men.
Men.
Speaking to the mic, please.
I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
It really depends on what aspect you're talking about.
Yeah.
True.
I agree with them.
It
these
depends.
two.
Okay, those are really helpful answers here.
I'd say men.
Men.
Okay. Mason?
I would say in today's day and age, women.
I agree.
Honestly, I think I would say woman.
Why would you say that?
Because we have like pretty privilege.
That's true.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
well put. Based.
Right. Well, that's
It is
why,
based.
that's why I
Ugly.
say it
What about an
depends.
ugly girl? Does an ugly girl have the same
Oh.
privilege as a beautiful woman?
I guess not.
In that matter, no.
Okay, but I think ugly man versus attractive man. Obviously, attractive men have different privileges than an ugly man. But an overall, like when we mean
Like umbrella statement.
yes, that
Umbrella statement,
regardless if
it's
they're
men.
attractive or not, men have more privilege. But if you're an attractive woman, you can have privilege. But if you're an ugly woman, then what do you get?
Yeah.
Okay,
guess
so
that's
let's
true.
go. Let's fast forward back to modern day. So if we're looking at the modern day, how do males have more privilege than women in totality? You can answer, Keeko.
I'm tired of talking.
You can talk. Go ahead.
I'm tired of talking. Can we get some other?
Well, I don't know if any of the girls want to weigh in on that.
I don't either.
Well, you were making the argument.
I'm tired of every time I try to make my argument, I'm derailing apparently. So I'm like,
No, because I'm
good.
asking you a direct question as the host. You start talking over here about crackhead babies. You see how that's
It was
different?
pertaining to the conversation.
But you see how I just asked you a
The way-
question about the topic
We're
at
talking
hand?
about affluence.
About male privilege
you want
and
to like
female
hone
privilege?
in on little words just because you're a white man and you want to focus on the man part when there's a lot of other details on that list. So I'm
Except
tired
he also
of
granted
reiterating
that
the same thing.
he said the affluent thing was a perk, like was a privilege.
Yes, I've already.
He granted
yeah,
that.
I've already
so
granted it. So
why would
it's
that
not
be
even
brought
worth
into
That's only
the?
one of the 7 things
Okay,
on that
but
list.
we can get
Why
to
was
white
it being
in a
brought
bit.
up then? He agreed with that.
I'm saying that you're
100%.
beating a dead horse right now is what I'm saying. We've already
I'm not
debated it
beating.
and
I'm
talked
not
it.
beating a dead horse. I'm asking you to provide evidence for how men are privileged over women.
I think you're trying to say history doesn't matter, but it does. That's always going to be a framework
Women
of what
have had
we are
the
dealing
vote
with.
for 100 years. The vote is irrelevant.
Has it
But
been
the
100
vote
years
is
yet?
not just
It's
the only
barely.
detail that's
It's
been laid
been
out on
over
the table.
100 years.
Yeah, that's
What's that?
Voting is not the only detail that's been laid out on the table.
Okay, so articulate to me a right or privilege that men have that women don't, perhaps as granted by the government. Can you think of any right that men have that women don't?
I told you I'm done talking about
No,
it.
you're going to talk.
I'm not. Especially if you're telling me I'm going to talk about something, I'm actually not going to do it. Here's the dominant disagreement part coming out.
Yeah.
No, it's not happening. Learn to speak to me, and then maybe I will.
Bro,
'cause you're being fucking
you're
rude.
constantly rude, Keeko.
To you, I'm really
Yes.
not, Brian. I'm actually pretty nice
Nah,
to you.
you're pretty rude. You're
Okay.
pretty rude.
When I had I had a girl screaming at me. I was literally just sitting here giggling, but I'm fucking rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more than one way besides being like directly. For example, like if I'm trying to direct the flow of the conversation and you hear me speaking and you just continue babbling on about whatever irrelevant topic it is, yes, that's rude. Especially when we say before the show, hey, if Brian's trying to like cut in and like redirect things, get things back on topic, yes, it's rude.
Okay.
Every other
Everyone's
girl
been having
here.
sidebars the whole time while I've usually sat and waited and didn't say anything. Second of all, it wasn't like I was having a sidebar conversation. We were still talking
Yeah, we were
about what was going on, and you didn't say, okay, you said, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up, let's go over here. There's a certain way to do things, actually.
No, because I'll try to cut in and you'll just keep talking and
I haven't
talking
done
and
that. I
no,
haven't.
you don't. Like the other girls, I'll give them credit. If I start talking, they'll tend to yield. But you'll just like keep fucking going. Oh, baby fucking crackheads, blah 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 blah. Like
You're
holy
You're taking
shit,
that
dude.
so out of context
Yeah, like,
because
it literally
during
has
that
not
statement,
happened.
we were using hypotheticals. She was using a hypothetical just like you do when we're debating.
It was irrelevant to the.
We were talking about race,
yeah,
and they were saying that
No,
race
but
doesn't matter.
we were talking about male,
privilege.
female.
Because you were stuck on that, but nobody else wants to talk about that anymore, Brian. We're all moving past that point.
No, you're not.
We've already
dictating
talked about
that.
it for 20 minutes.
So why don't you just answer the question?
Because I'm over the conversation.
Well, I think you're actually just cowarding away from engaging in the debate.
I think we've
asked for
debated a lot
evidence.
about privilege
Not
as
really.
an umbrella statement, and that was part of privilege in the
Cool.
statement.
I've asked for evidence of how.
Solid.
I'm
I feel like also
asking-
most of the girls don't talk, and
Yeah,
we're trying to debate something that was actually keeping the conversation going, so it wasn't boring here.
Yeah, thank you. I agree.
I think what Brian was trying to do was trying to isolate one area of privilege and then possibly move on to the others. So
It's fine, but we're saying it's taking too long. Like, we've been talking
Well,
about this
Yeah.
for a good, 30
Well,
minutes.
the
about
reason,
this.
reason-
now
yeah.
we're having a meta conversation because you're throwing a fit and you won't just actually.
My fit, I find more entertaining than that boring-ass conversation we just had.
or you could just engage in the conversation instead of having a meta
I'm the only
conversation.
one engaging in the conversation.
Engaging in the conversation would be if I'm asking you a question, asking you to clarify your position, instead of being like throwing a little temper tantrum. You could just answer the question.
I feel like
many times
when anyone is told to shut the fuck up or to answer a direct question, especially with the demeanor that you did, I would react the same exact way. I
Thank
absolutely would.
agree.
Because it is disrespectful.
Thank you.
And I understand
Or-
talking over somebody is also disrespectful and interrupting them as well. But we were on topic and we were talking about stuff. The conversation was actually flowing. That shit was
Or-
actually interesting.
How about if
It
you're
got me involved.
instructed, if you're instructed before the show and you've been on the show, what, 5, 6, 7 times, and we provide pre-show instructions that says, hey, if Brian is trying to redirect the conversation, yield to him so he can get people back on point instead of you guys totally going off into fucking anywhere. But now we're continuing to have a meta conversation, so just why don't you engage with the actual question?
I'm good off this topic now. I'm good.
You can't just say you're good.
I can. I have free
So
will.
you're conceding. Okay, so then you're conceding the argument.
Oh God.
You're just
What do you
conceding
say?
the argument.
I don't know
Look,
what
then
that
I'll just
means.
make my point, and you can
What
just
do you say?
concede.
Okay.
So when it comes to male privilege, here's my position. Upon birth, males are circumcised. Most boys, in this country are circumcised upon birth. They have their genitals mutilated. That's an extremely strong argument for how immediately, where's this male privilege? They can't consent to it. And then, of course, I could bring up the draft, forced military conscription. That's huge. And if we look at just the life outcomes of men compared to women, we can talk about homelessness, we can talk about self-deletion, we can talk about incarceration rates, we can talk about police brutality, police brutality, police killings, etc.
Ironically enough, I feel like all of those things are also predominantly men. Ironically
Perpetrated
enough.
by men.
Yeah.
So the whole point is, women, we get traumatized by other men, or things get put onto us by men. Men, your issues, things that are getting put onto you are by other men. So what's the issue here?
Which proves the point from the beginning.
Wait,
Thank you. So want to go down the list,
kind
or
of
we can change
ironic.
topic?
It doesn't mean that the men
even
who are
run that
getting
back to both of us.
attacked, like killed,
So it doesn't matter?
Doesn't mean that they don't
It doesn't
have.
matter because it's other men?
They're not privileged
No
to
one
have.
said that it doesn't matter because of that.
All you're saying is that
It just proves the
men
point.
are stronger, which is a biological fact that can't be remedied.
Smells like steak.
Yeah, it does. It smells
It does.
so
It
good.
does so
It
good.
makes
Oh
me
my gosh.
so hungry
When are we
right
done?
now.
I'm hungry now.
I know. It's like wafting in terrible.
And it's cold in here too.
I know, I had to put my jacket back on.
I have a question then for the whole panel.